Today, I am going to tell you about the 4 food habits that basically took me from looking like this my whole life to this. Looking back at these old photos of me, it is clear that I have always kind of been a little bit more on the muscular side. I grew up playing a lot of sports that did require a lot of power, a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers. So it makes sense that I have always kind of looked a bit more muscular. But looking at these photos, it is also clear that this is probably the most muscular and lean that I have ever been on my 27 years on this planet. So let's talk about how I got here. Habit number 1, I stopped listening to my cravings. I will be like scrolling on my feed and there are going to be influencers, nutritionists, dietitians, coaches, all kind of saying a bunch of different things when it comes to cravings. And a lot of the messaging I'm seeing these days are, if you're having a craving, you should listen to that and you should give into it. Or if you're having a craving, you must be deficient in something else. I'm sure we've all kind of seen like if you're always craving chocolate, you must be deficient in magnesium. There are so many recommendations out there, and instead of just getting overwhelmed and confused by them, I actually just decided to sit in the discomfort of the craving and try to figure out myself where it was originating from. When I took the time to actually analyze my cravings and figure out what the sources were, I realized that these cravings only kicked in on days when I had like a hefty to-do list. When I feel overwhelmed with tasks, my brain wants to procrastinate. I think we can all kind of relate to that. For me, my brain's chosen method of procrastination is to eat. My to-do list will be bloody full and my brain's gonna be like,
oh, it's time to eat. Oh, I can't eat and work at the same time, so guess I'll just do this after I finish my meal.
Once I realized that this was the source of my cravings and not that I was
deficient in some macronutrient
or that I was
under eating and just didn't know it,
it became so much easier to, 1, just like eat the frog, sit down and do my work and actually be productive, and 2, not overindulge in moments that I didn't need to. Coming from firsthand experience, I know it is very difficult to sit in discomfort. I know that it is hard to actively not try to meet that craving and instead to dissect it. But taking the time to actually be curious about your own patterns and what triggers your cravings is always going to be more helpful than getting overwhelmed by all the advice being given to you off of social media, because that advice is only ever going to be general. And yes, general advice literally means that it can apply to a whole bunch of people, but it might not apply to you because it certainly did not apply to me. And you're only ever gonna know if it does or doesn't apply to you if you take the time to actually put the work in to become more self-aware. Okay, let's talk about habit number 2, eating 2.3 grams per kilo of body weight daily. Now, the recommended daily protein requirements for people who are trying to maximize muscle growth is 1.6 to 2.4 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. This is a photo of me after my first ever serious 12-week cut. By serious, I had a coach who was giving me my calories and macros, and by then I had also had quite a lot of experience strength training. So this was not only the most dedicated I've ever been, but also the most knowledgeable I'd ever been in terms of both training and having the skills of being able to manipulate calories and macros. In this 12-week cut, and for a long period after that, I was eating about 120 grams of protein daily. That's about 1.8 times my body weight. That was in 2020, and since then, I actively tried to build the habit of eating more protein because I knew of the benefits of having increased protein. And now here is a picture of me after my second ever serious cut in 2022, and this is the current picture of me now. Both of those photos is when I was eating 2.3 grams of protein per my body weight. That is 160 Gs per day. Keep in mind that like my overall training and my overall diet is what contributed to me looking like that, but increased protein was definitely a massive game changer. And let's talk about why. Firstly, a higher protein diet is going to help a boatload with training recovery. This makes sense because we literally know of protein as the like building blocks of muscle. If you follow me on Instagram, Danielle Mendoza, you will see that I consistently train hard and lift quite heavy.
and do a lot of physically taxing things to my body.
Obviously, the type of training I do is what is consistently making me stronger, but the higher protein diet that I consume outside of the gym is what contributes to both the muscle growth and the recovery to be able to show up session after session, being able to perform my best, and then get the adaptations from coming in and consistently doing my best. And look, on top of the training and the aesthetics of it all, having a higher protein diet that also I actively make sure is coming from like a wide variety of protein sources means that I'm consistently getting like all 9 essential amino acids. So I'm not just turning up to training ready to perform, I'm turning up to life fully
micronutriented up.
And let's not forget that protein helps with feeling satisfied. I work from home a lot, and as previously mentioned, I like to
Procrastinate by eating.
Having a higher protein diet means that I feel happily satisfied and I'm not mistaking my boredom or my need to procrastinate as hunger. And lastly, like, I care about aging well. I want to be able to grow old and still live a high quality of life where I can move through life pain-free and injury-free. Consuming a higher protein diet not only helps with preventing muscle loss, but it's linked with having improved bone mineral density. On Instagram, we see a lot of workouts that are like,
bulletproof your shoulders, hybrid training, functional training.
I get it. But another way that you can bulletproof yourself or at least minimize your injury potential in life and in training is consuming a higher protein diet. Before we move on to habit number 3, just remember that this 2.3 grams is my sweet spot, and I've come from a place of already being in the habit of consuming a higher protein diet. If you're someone who has trouble with hitting that bottom range, that 1.6, start by taking small steps. Look at your current diet and see whereabouts you can fit more protein in. Just remember that with like any habit or skill, you've got to start with meeting yourself where you're at and taking the small steps from there. Habit number 3, tracking my eating habits with the intention of analyzing the results. Not a gaining phase, not a dieting phase, just tracking my current habits. Don't press the X. Don't do it. I know the concept of tracking is hard. Doing something that we've never done before and learning how to do it is hard. But you know what else is hard? Like being ignorant to what is preventing you from reaching your goals. Being unaware of your own habits and their consequences just adds to the frustration of not being where you want to be and actually like fuels your obsession of wanting to change your life, but in a very negative way. Negative because you have zero information on your current situation and you're just being overwhelmed by all the external information out there and you don't actually know if any of that is relevant to you. Tracking, not tracking, it's all hard. We're just gonna choose our hard. What I learned from tracking my calories without trying to hit any specific targets is that I was really under eating throughout the day. And then by dinner time, I was so hungry that just whatever I ate, it never felt satisfying. This was happening because ghrelin, which is the hormone responsible for increasing hunger, by under eating the whole day, I was just causing it to go up and up and up. So then by dinner time, my ghrelin levels were so high that it was then causing me to just like be so hungry that I would then overeat. When I say overeating, I don't mean binging. I was just having really large portions that would take me out of, my body's maintenance. It just so happened that I chose to start tracking my calories when there were 2 major changes in my life. The first one is that I went from a desk job to becoming a personal trainer. So I was walking a lot on the gym floor. I was moving way more than I was before. And 2, it was also when I started like seriously strength training and pushing myself a lot harder and lifting more weight as well. And I really realized that I was not fueling myself properly for either of those 2 massive lifestyle changes. I definitely recommend when you go through like quite a big lifestyle change to just check in on yourself and to, make sure that you are eating enough. Tracking my calories and realizing how little I was under eating led me to realize the changes that I needed to make sure that I was fueling myself properly throughout the day, which allowed me to keep 1, my hunger hormones happy and regulated, 2, let me live a higher quality of life because I had more energy to fuel that life, and 3, it meant that I was rocking up to training fully fueled and ready to perform, which led to massive strength gains. Once you've taken the time to track and see your habits, you can then give yourself targets to experiment with, trying to see if you can make yourself feel better, to perform better. So for example, you track and you realize that you don't have a lot of carbs, and right now you have a lot of strength and performance goals. So you can look to increase your carbs and then see how you feel from there. I know that tracking calories is very much associated with like cutting and bulking phases, but really you can use it as just a tool to get to know yourself better. Have you noticed that self-awareness is a big key in this video? Okay, this last one is what has made saying no to instant gratification so much easier, and something that I really only learned this last year. Habit number 4, truly understanding what my values are and making the identity shift that came with that. Before we get into this last one, I just want to say that this is a habit that I very much wanted to instill in myself based on what I had found when I was reflecting on my own habits, my own relationship with food, my thoughts about food, and just like how all of that relates to my goals. If you take anything from this video, it is to be encouraged to understand your own habits, your own relationship with food, and also very much understanding what your values, goals, and priorities truly are, and how your food habits, understanding whether they are actually helping you or hindering you when it comes to being the person that you say you want to be. For all I know, your goal is food freedom, whatever that means to you, and your definition of that could be completely different to someone else who also says that their goal is food freedom too. As long as you know and have clarity on what your actual goals and values are and what your ideal outcome is when it comes to figuring out your relationship with food, it is so much easier to not be swayed by what other people are saying about their own relationship with food, including me and this very video. I'm going to say something that I used to be very ashamed of saying, and that is, I am a woman who cares about how I look. Having a specific type of physique to me is something I value. And this could change. It's changed before, it could change again. And here is where the shame came from. I was scared to tell people that I had specific physique goals, or that my physique mattered to me, because I thought that people would think I was a bad person for caring about how I looked. And feeling bad came from this idea that, if I told someone that I preferred to have a disciplined approach towards food, or that it was a method that did work for me, that they would think that I was like an unhealthily obsessed person. And for so long, I was just trying to fix this shame by changing this value of mine, instead of just taking ownership of the fact that this was something I valued and living life like in accordance with that. As soon as I stopped caring about whether or not people thought I was shallow, I've just felt so much more free. Taking ownership of that, it made it so much easier to come to peace with the fact that
I cannot eat whatever I want, whenever I want,
even though that may be someone else's goal, or that someone else might think that that is the healthier approach. Even though right now it is very popular to intuitively eat, or to go all in, or to be body neutral, I know that if I lived my life going towards that, it would deviate from my actual priorities in this current phase of life. And now, having clarity over that goal, being okay with it, and being nice to myself about having that goal has made it so much easier for me to say no to opportunities of instant gratification, especially when I'm out in social settings. I stopped caring that people would tell me I've changed when I said
no to dessert.
I openly tell people that I
count my calories and my macros, and that I care about protein.
And most importantly, I have stopped questioning my morality and shaming myself when I do choose the path of discipline when it comes to certain food choices. I've become okay with telling myself no, even when I don't want to say no, because I know that long-term future me would prefer that. So there you have it, my 4 habits that have changed my body and my life. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. I hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button or both. Let me know in the comments what resonated with you the most, if you have any feedback. Other than that, I will see you in the next video. Bye.